But you mentioned hormesis before and hormetic stresses. Now, something that I think is prevalent is people moving away from the biggest levers, which is sleep, sunlight, nutrition, and exercise, not getting that down packed and going straight to the cold bath or going straight to the sauna. And I have a very strong philosophy, and it's like, can you even, if you can squat your body weight, or if you can't squat your body weight yet, then you shouldn't even be supplementing. Supplements should be at the top of the tier, along with all of these really fancy, red light therapy, all of these, unless you've got your sleep dialed in, your exercise dialed in, and nutrition dialed in, what's the point of going through and doing these accessory items? So I want to talk about what hormesis is and some of the different things that you implement to basically, achieve a hormetic response.
Yeah, I might steal that, by the way, about the squatting your body weight thing, because I think that's really important. Like, you've got a large amount of people that are, you know, living in their mother's basement, not able to, like, not wanting to work out, not wanting to work, not wanting to do anything for themselves, but they're taking 5-minute cold showers because, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, like, you're putting the cart before the horse. Like, this isn't going to save your life. Like, doing this cold shower might be a catalyst for something, or taking these supplements might, help you X, Y, Z. But I think you need to get your priorities in order first and do the big things that are difficult. You need to exercise, you need to get a job, things like that before you start saying, like, well, I want to increase my brain performance. Okay, well, let's work on these things first. But with hormesis, like, it sounds like it's such a simple concept on the surface, and it is, right? It's just, allowing, creating a stressor or applying a stressor enough to the point where you develop a little bit of resiliency for it. But it's not as black and white as that makes it seem either, right? You have this thing called the hormetic curve, which, again, I am not a subject matter expert in this. I'm more of a generalist that's just kind of hopelessly my own N of one. But, a hormetic curve is essentially where, you apply a stressor, a stressor, a stressor, a stressor until you get the maximum benefit. But then if you look at the hormetic curve, it drops sharply, right? So, like, essentially, like, once you have gotten to a point of extreme stress, you get that point of extreme stress. And that is where people that are athletes take a little help, right? Like, that's when supplementation can come into play, because yes, it can change that hormetic curve a little bit more to where you can handle more stress and essentially get a bigger adaptation. Like, you look at performance enhancing drugs, if you look at steroids, that's exactly how they're working, right? They're enhancing your recovery, they're enhancing the ability to withstand more, so you get a greater adaptation. So, but I encourage people to look at hormetic stressors at sort of a micro level, like, because if you're paying attention to the different stressors you have in your life, you have your big grandiose hormetic stressor of life. And inside that big hormetic curve, you've got all these little hormetic curves that create that curve, right? And I'm using myself as an example. If I'm in marathon prep and I'm also lifting and I'm also raising 2 little kids and I also get in a fight with my wife and then I go jump in a cold plunge, like, that cold plunge might just tip me over the edge, right? So it's all about, like, balancing these stressors against one another and being able to know, like, okay, what is too much? And sometimes we don't have anything arbitrary or like subjective rather to really show us, like, when we've gone too far. And if you're not careful, like, you either overdo it or you pull levers and you stress yourself so much in categories that have a minimal impact. And at the end of the day, the stressors come back down to, like, okay, how do I mildly stress myself with exercise? How do I mildly stress myself with a little caloric restriction here and there? And rotate your stressors.
Mildly, that's the word, yeah.
Yes, mildly and rotating. It's like we all go through blocks. Like, I don't necessarily recommend, unless you're highly trained, going through a block of, maybe a 3-day fast and intense exercise. Like, yeah, I mean, you can do it and you might be fine, but is it optimal? Like, as Brad Kearns would say, like, you're not getting that benefit. So hormesis is just a really fragile concept because it can easily get broken, and with too much data, it can be detrimental.
Oh yeah, but how does it relate to longevity?
Oh, because if you think about it from the perspective of, if it doesn't kill you, makes you stronger, then that's what it comes down to, right?
Survivability,
yeah,
again.
it's, how do you get tougher? How do you get more resilient? So
Yeah.
you've got the two sides of the coin. I don't know if you ever remember like the anti-fragile concept.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like if you just become as tough as possible, you don't want to be fragile. And that's goes deeper than just that on the surface. It's little things like even coming down to, you could back it up and say, okay, I don't want to obsess over my sleep patterns, because if I obsess over my sleep patterns, I've basically in turn become fragile. When in reality, logically, you're doing the opposite. You're trying to be not fragile. You're trying to be like, I want to get sleep and I want to be able to be prepared to take on the next day. But in an effort to do that, you've made yourself fragile because you're obsessing. So anti-fragile concept comes back to the super wide angle view of I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But with I don't give a shit also comes I don't give a shit what I eat. So how can you balance that to say I don't give a shit, but I also care enough to nourish my body properly and to exercise?